and Holland earlier, and these two brothers, Alistair on the left, the Olympic champion, and younger brother Jonathan on the right, will hope to add to that tally in their relatively unfamiliar England red and white here this afternoon. Scorchio in Scotland. Richard Murray could be their main rival, but he needs to have a decent swim. It's been his Achilles heel. And he might get helped along if he gets left behind in the water. He might get helped along on the bike by Ian Solvald, his South African teammate on the left, and maybe Tom Davidson, who's very much a bike specialist, the New Zealander in a different league. And there he is in the black. Davidson could really do some damage on the bike today. That's his specialist field. Gets left behind, goes backwards when he parks his bike, but can really help the others who have got left behind in the water to close the gap to the leaders. But of course, the leaders today likely to be the Olympic gold and bronze medalists. The field here very, very strong indeed. So they will swim 2 laps in the water, 2 laps of 750 meters each to complete the 1500-meter swim distance. Then they'll come out of the water up onto the transition area, pick up their bikes and ride 5 8K loops in and around the park. It includes one stiff climb at the western end of the park, close to the theme park and the M74. There's David McNamee of Scotland, wearing number 14. Scotland also represented by Grant Sheldon, Mark Austin. Russell White goes for Northern Ireland, along with Conor Murphy. And Aaron Harris, the 3rd member of the England team. As the 45 elite triathletes wait for the final countdown. 1 or 2 of the lesser-known triathletes being called down onto the pontoon. It's an international field here. But these two are the men to beat. Tense moments. There's the bike specialist from New Zealand, Tom Davison. Look out for him. He's in a different league on 2 wheels, but first of all, they have to swim for 1,500 meters. Breeze, they'll dive into the wind. Handshakes on the pontoon from some of the lesser-known field of triathletes. Murray alongside Solvald, the 2 South Africans. Australian representation here as well today. Canada, New Zealand, South Africa, and they're ready to go. The Brownlee brothers closest to us. Spectacular dive from Jonathan and Alistair Brownlee as they swim out into this artificial lock created by diverting the waters from the River Clyde. Clean and clear and cool. They'll be happy to get in there on a day like today. And we expect the pace in the water possibly to come from one of the South Africans in the middle of the lake. And there's also a guy from Jersey by the name of Daniel Hawksworth. He's wearing number 35, and he's an ex-youth Commonwealth Games gold medalist. So look out for him in swimming, let me add, in the 400 meters individual medley. So maybe Daniel Hawksworth could make an impact in this swim phase 1, Steve True.
I agree with that, Matt. I think he could be very, very powerful, not just on the swim, but also on the bike. You know, we look at the smaller nations in the triathlon, and to a certain extent we think, well, it's going to be England, it's going to be Scotland, Wales, Ireland. Unfortunately, we don't have that many representatives from Wales coming through here today. And then the bigger nations, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. But we have the odd individual comes through. We saw a fantastic performance by Flora Duffy this morning, which was really tremendous. What interests me, Matt, is that the way that the seeding and the pontoon positions have gone on the swim, because Alistair and Johnny have chosen to go together and really right towards the other end. We have Richard Murray, who we know he's going to be worrying about the swim, and he's chosen to get right next to Solwood coming through. So I think there's been a bit of a pact gone on there, that Richard Murray is looking to Ian Solwood to try to get him somewhere decent on the swim discipline.
Henry Schoeman might feature as well, always fast through the water, wearing number 7 for South Africa, but the early pace is coming from the brothers wearing 1 and 3, because Richard Murray wears number 2. So top of your screen, on the right, Jonathan Brownlee, higher ranked in the world triathlon standings than Alistair at the moment, hence he wears number 1. They seem to have Henry Schoeman for company, that's no surprise. He, as one of the lightest men, in fact the lightest man in the field today, always quick through the water. specialist swimmer, weighs just 58 kilos. We'll look out for Schumann, wearing number 7 today. And there's Alistair Brownlee, the Olympic champion, reaching the first of these giant inflatable buoys. Heads up to the second one before they turn left. So it's an anti-clockwise lap. They'll end up at the end of the first lap back behind the pontoon before exiting the water once. We'll get a check on the standings of the whole field, which is spreading quite quickly, no surprise. There's one guy in the field today who's 47 years of age, Christopher Walker from Gibraltar. The oldest man in the contest, no surprise there. 47 years of age. We'll see how he fares later on today. Carried the flag in the opening ceremony last night, Christopher Walker. A couple of swans for company here.
Well, Christopher Walker actually competed in the Commonwealth Games 12 years ago back in Manchester as a young man of just 35 years old, so no wonder he's been chosen by his country to carry the flag. Interesting, just watching the start of the swim, there was a spread of about 3 or 4 metres between Jonathan and Alistair, and then Johnny looked up, he saw Alistair just on the inside of him on the right and made an immediate beeline to get straight on his feet. Henry Schumann, as you say, Matt, very nicely positioned on that first 200, 250 metres, getting directly behind Alistair, and he's going to be working hard. We certainly saw with the women's event how quickly the field spread out, and although we've got more athletes now competing in the men's, I think the actual spread is going to be very, very long indeed, and it's going to be absolutely crucial for the athletes to get on that first pack. There's no doubt that Alistair feels that he's in great shape. He said that this week. And he's emphasised that he feels really, really good indeed. And the way that Alistair races, the way that Johnny races, is to go from the front. They love a hard course. The cycle is demanding. It's not an easy run after the back of that. Jodie Stimpson proved this morning it's the hard, tough athlete who can do well. And that's what I'm looking forward to this afternoon with the Brownlee boys.
Midsummer in Scotland. It's always like this up here, apparently. Next turn, there can be damage done on these tight turns next to the inflatables, but with a relatively small field, just 45, the athletes steering clear of danger, and it hasn't taken long for Jonathan and Alistair, top of your screen in the red strip of England. Quick off the pontoon, and right into pole position in the first 30 seconds of this swim, to be followed by a 40k bike and then a 10,000 metre run in the searing heat of the afternoon in the Strathclyde Country Park.
Was a great start by Alistair, just on the dive, and stayed under, surfaced about 6 inches in front of the rest of the field, immediately to the front. You just know, there he is, the first arm to rise. You just know that's what he's looking for this afternoon, to make it hard, to make it tough, just to really stretch out the field, to try to get rid of any possible competitors just as soon as he can. Of course, if he can get away from the very strong runners early on, and I think that will be relatively easier because that the field is so stretched out, that it's going to be to his advantage, and of course to Johnny's advantage.
Spectacular scenes. What a beautiful afternoon for sport, and water sports very much the key attraction in these parts. Rowing and water skiing, and it's a massive rowing venue, home to the Edinburgh University Boat Club, the Heriot Watt University Boat Club, and the Scottish Rowing Centre as well.
Well, the spread of the field at this early stage, we're only around 2/3, possibly 3/4 of the way through lap number 1, and that field is spread over 250, maybe even more. We've got, as we would expect, the better known athletes are in that lead group. They're following through, and they're going to be working very, very hard indeed. As with the women's event, we can see that it hasn't become a wide pack, it's more become a long pack, with people desperately trying to get on the feet of the swimmer in front of them. They do not want to lose contact, and even at this early stage, we know that the swimmers will be planning. They've got to come out of the water at 750 metres, and they will not want to lose any seconds at all, any possible drafting effect on the dive back into the water for lap number 2.
Jonathan Brownlee, wearing number 1, comes round the L-shaped inflatable and glances up, and a problem with his goggles. Had to readjust his vision there, Jonathan, but he's already negotiated the turn, so it shouldn't affect him. Looking at the spread of the field that you mentioned there, Steve, I've got a sneaky suspicion that somebody might be lapped in the lake. Now, I can't remember ever commentating on a race where that's happened on a two-leg swim, but there's a guy who's just about turning for the second swim stage of the swim now. I'm looking from the com box. He he's going very, very slowly. He might be lapped in the water.
Matt, I have to agree with you. We saw it to an extent on the women's race earlier on today, and just about made it coming out. But this does look at even a bigger stretch. But I think importantly, for the way the race is going to develop, we do have that pack at the front. It's a straight line in pack pretty much, and a strong possibility of a break, even at this early stage, in the swimmers in the front pack. Just looking down there, 15, possibly as many as 20 there, but a gap beginning to develop after around 7th or 8th position. It's going to be absolutely intriguing watching the come out of the water and then the re-entry for lap number 2.
Decent sized group, pretty well spread. 15 seconds between the first of those swimmers and the last of that front group. And the first of them is the younger of the two brothers, 24-year-old Jonathan Brownlee. Alistair is in second, and he has, I would assume that's Henry Schumann. It should be Henry Schumann on swimming form. I can't see the number 7 on his swim hat, but he would be the likely swimmer in third position. And I wonder if we're going to see anything of Daniel Hawksworth from Jersey, who we mentioned earlier, ex-youth Commonwealth gold 400 individual medley champion. So we'll keep an eye out for him. We'll get a full check on the runners and riders as they come out of the water at the end of lap 1, halfway through the swim, 750 metres down. 750 metres to go, and the Brownlee brothers are at the front of proceedings here. A chance for Jonathan to look over to his older brother Alistair. Just struggled out of the water there. Jonathan first, Alistair out of the water second. In third it is Henry Schumann. Then Mark Austin of Scotland's had a good swim. He's in fourth. Bailey of Australia next. Sisson's in good shape. Aaron Royal in good shape. Grant Sheldon is with the leaders as well. Two of the Scottish athletes making good progress in the waterborne stage, phase 1 of this Commonwealth Games triathlon here in the Strathclyde Country Park.
Well, we've got a split on that leading pack. The top 7 swimmers coming out of the water, getting back in. They've just managed to make a break around 5 metres only at the moment. And Matt, you're absolutely right. Danny Hawksworth did feature in there. I think he's in that lead pack of 7, and he's a very strong biker as well. He's been racing over longer distances recently, and that's going to stand him in great stead on this tough bike course.
Under 10 minutes of the triathlon gone, and Jonathan Brownlee ploughs his way through the water. He's had a solid but not spectacular season on the World Triathlon Series, which runs from the beginning of April all the way through to the grand final, which takes place at the end of August in Edmonton in Canada. He's been outclassed most of the time by Javier Gomez-Noyer of Spain, who's obviously not here. Alistair has had intermittent appearances on the World Triathlon Series, but crucially at the last event in Hamburg he won. That was over the sprint distance.
Well, Alistair Brownlee looked under his left shoulder almost at the same time. Johnny Brownlee looked under his right shoulder, and to me, most unusually, there just seemed a big injection of swim pace that they perhaps looked back, they've seen there is a possibility of a split developing, and decided to put the hammer down to try to get away. Now, we saw what developed. We had that group of 11 working together initially with the women's race. That quickly established itself. A lot of work had to be done there. Now, I think both Alistair and Johnny, they've looked back and they thought, right, we're not going to be in that situation. We're going to get this down as much as we possibly can. And on this very tight cycle course, I think it may be even better to have a small working group of 5, 6, 7 rather than around a dozen. That could really be to their advantage.
Interesting racing developing here as Henry Schumann, the accomplished swimmer, forces the pace for South Africa, but the Brownlees are really putting the hammer down here.
Well, still working hard, and all the time there's this sighting, looking up, looking down, looking around, making sure they're in a very good position. That split really has developed now. We can see just how it's going, and right from the front to the back of the field, it looks very possible indeed that we could have a swimmer being lapped. Gentleman at the back of the field doing breaststroke now. We maybe get a picture of that. But at the front of the field, the pace really is fast and furious. Schoeman is having a great performance. He's staying there just as the Brownlees are looking back at Henry Schoeman. Schoeman's looking up at them and making sure he's well established there. He's going to be delighted to be in a small working cycle back because he knows that gives him a very good chance of a medal.
Next turn, and the pace is still fast and furious as the Brownlee brothers start to do some damage to this field, which is well spread. There's a significant gap between the first 12 and the next group. I fear that the last man in the water may well be lapped. As you say, Steve, he's doing breaststroke. There are two guys actually still swimming their first lap. The last of them are on the far side of the lake from us. There are a couple of kayakers and paramedics shadowing them, so they're in safe hands should anything happen.
Well, I think there's only around 220, 230 metres between the leaders on lap number 2 and the back marker on lap number 1. It's going to be tight. You've got to say that you hope he's not going to get lapped, because for so many of these athletes, just to make Commonwealth Games representation is the biggest opportunity they will get, and you don't want people to be pulled out too early in the race, of course not.
Just to let you know, the women's triathlon took place this morning. A win for Jodie Stimpson of England, with Kirsten Sweetland taking the silver for Canada, and another English bronze in the shape of medal in the shape of Vicky Holland's bronze. The second lap of the men's triathlon swim is well underway as we see a spectacular re-entry demonstrated by the Olympic bronze medalist wearing number 1 today, Jonathan Brownlee. First out of the water, first back in. He's pushing the pace at the front of the field here. After this second and final lap in the water, they'll switch to 2 wheels, running back towards the transition area, picking up their bikes and heading out into the hills and paths of the Strathclyde Country Park. 5 8K laps to complete a 40K cycle distance, and then they'll return to transition to park up the bikes, put on the running shoes for 3 laps of 3.3Ks to complete the triathlon with a 10,000-metre run. It's tough, it's grueling. They're some of the fittest athletes in the world. Conditions are absolutely glorious. Some will suffer in the heat a little later, particularly on the run, but they're happy to be in the cool waters of the loch here, and the pace is still significant, with Henry Schoeman taking his turn at the front of the field.
Well, just over 3 minutes, perhaps 3.5 minutes to go. 250 metres remaining on the swim, and we've still got 2 swimmers in the water on lap number 1, and it is going to be very, very close indeed. But we looked at that big pack going out on lap number 1. That leading pack has indeed split. The pace has been fast and furious. I think there's been more of an awareness, because the quality of the field, if I dare say that, is not quite as wide as we got used to seeing in the World Triathlon Series, that the athletes have a little bit more space around them to see what is developing and to adjust their tactics in that way. We can see again, as we saw on lap number 1, it is straight lining now, and it is getting very close towards the end of lap number 2, and also very close to the final swimmer on lap number 1.
This L-shaped buoy marks the last turn before they hit the exit point. In fact, there's one short turn before they come out of the ramp and onto the pontoon. And they're pretty well spread now. No one's concerned in this lead group. They're all in good shape here. It'll be interesting at the end of the second lap to see how far Richard Murray is behind the leading group. Murray wearing number 2. He's been one of the best of the triathletes all season, Richard Murray. He's always a contender, and he can run down a lead after the bike of up to around 2 minutes, so you can never count him out. But he'll need to really get together with a decent group of riders on phase 2 on 2 wheels and try and close down the leaders, because he will be off the pace as they exit the water. And I would imagine Murray will be looking around for Tom Davison for company on the bikes to try and eat into the lead that's been set up by Schoeman, the Brownlees and others. There's the leading group, numbering about 10.
Well, I think we're looking at Tom Davison. We've just really a sensation this year early on, the way he was able to bridge that gap. But you just think, is he going to be willing to take Richard Murray back? Because certainly I would think he's been put in the team to aid out the other 2 New Zealanders there. Now this is getting very tight. That small group, 10, perhaps down to 7 or 8 now. and it really is just a couple of metres. And I think the safety canoe is persuading that final swimmer just to move out slightly, so he's not going to be absolutely engulfed by the lead group coming through.
Yeah, there's one swimmer left in the water from the first lap. He's breaststroking, just bobbing around. There he is, bottom left of your screen. I can't tell you who he is, but he has been lapped on the swim. I thought it might happen, and unfortunately for that particular athlete, it has. But, you know, he'll have a story to tell. Last little turn, last 15, 20 metres towards the exit point. Henry Schoeman, potentially the most accomplished swimmer in the field, has led the final stages of the swim, and he, along with the Brownlee brothers and a couple of the Scottish athletes, hopefully, will come out of the water in front. Schoeman out first, closely followed by the brothers. Henry Schoeman, 17:54 in the water. Johnny Brownlee out second, 4 seconds behind. Then Alistair, 2 seconds further back. Mark Austin's out in 4, in good shape. Sharp of Canada in 5th. Holtzworth, the man from Jersey, we thought he was good, he is. Ryan Bailey's out, Aaron Royal is out, the 2 Australians, Bale and Royley, up with the pace. Mark Austin was joined by David McNamee at the end of lap 1, but he's the only Scot now in this lead group. But that is cause for celebration and anticipation around the transition area here, because there is a Scottish triathlete in the mix. As Jonathan Brownlee, Henry Schoeman, Alistair Brownlee and Mark Austin of Scotland head out of transition with Bailey and Sharp and Holtzworth and Royal. They're on their way.
Well, great performance there by 20-year-old Mark Austin. Know his coach very well indeed. He's been saying he really does have great hope for him, and to come out in that position there, that really is sensational. And Matt, there is a significant gap between those first 8 swimmers and the trailing pack. So much damage done on lap number 2, and you just know that Alistair and Johnny Brownlee are going to be hitting it from the front, right from the very off on this cycle stage, and to close a gap is going to be so hard indeed. And there's a lot of good athletes back in this second pack. There really are a lot of good athletes. Just looking down there at Tyler Butterfield from Bermuda, you're seeing him coming out in just a second. Tyler, who's I think on his 3rd Commonwealth Games, which is his young age, seems quite incredible. Now there's Tom Davison coming out just under a minute down. For anybody else, you'd say that is insurmountable. For Tom Davison, you say, wow, he's in with a big chance.
So the front of the field, and they're beginning to settle down now. We've got the Brownlee brothers, we've got Schoeman, and we'll be keeping an eye out for Mark Austin of Scotland, the 20-year-old. Not only is he Scottish, he's born in Glasgow, so very much a local boy. He wears number 21, Mark Austin, so keep an eye open for him. There he is in 4th position. He's made it out, and he's in the shadow of the Brownlees on the first lap of this cycle. Schoeman, Brownlee, Austin and Sharp, the front group of 5. Then a 15-second gap to Holtzworth, Bailey, Royal, Murphy and Sheldon, the second of the Scottish athletes. So we have a group of 5 out in front. These 5, the best in and out of transition. They call it the 4th discipline. It was very important today, and Mark Austin has clearly practiced it well, and he's riding with the Brownlees and Schoeman right now on the first lap of 5.
Well, great opportunity for Mark Austin, because he knows he's in a working pack. I'm sure at his young age he's going to be more than happy to put in as much as is required for him to stay away, because even with that small group of 8 athletes there, we saw gaps beginning to develop, and it's going to take a big effort to close this down. Now Mark Austin has put himself in with a great chance here. The whole of the bike section is going to be a fast pace. He's going to be working at it. There's only at the moment 8 athletes in contention. There's a huge gap of 20-25 seconds back to the 9th and backwards from there through, and we've still got athletes coming through transition, and that's going to be continuing for a long time. Richard Murray 44 seconds down in 16th place overall. So I guess a possibility, Matt, Tom Davison a few seconds behind. Davison will be looking around, working out what he needs to do. He's going to be so aware of this course, and it is tactically a difficult cycle course. Ideal conditions for Tom, the sort of challenge that he would welcome, I'm sure.
Mark Austin of Scotland leads the Commonwealth Triathlon. Off into the woods. Shaded areas very welcome, with the sun at its hottest now in the afternoon. You can see the gap from the leaders to the chasers. Chase pair at the moment, and we'll decipher who's whose position we're on the race, but we're down to a group of 4. So did we lose Schumann? No, I think we lost Sharp. Sharp is the man, the Canadian, who's dropped off. Matt Sharp of Canada clearly making a mistake. I don't know what happened to him. He was with that front group. It was 5, it's now only 4. Sharp a casualty. Matt Sharp of Canada not with the front group any longer.
Matt, I think that's a reaction to the twists and turns on this court, that you lose a couple of seconds and all of a sudden it's gone. Now 4 athletes away. The Brownlee's going to welcome this. Mark Astin is going to realise what a fabulous opportunity he has. And Henry Schumann, the man who's always done so much work, is going to feel that he maybe have a chance to get on the podium. Danny Hawksworth there, looking very good, but after that great swim, looks like a bit of a gap that he's going to need to close now. We're looking for big news on Tom Davison. What's going to happen with Davison? What's going to happen with Richard Murray? And you look back at this pack, that doesn't seem to be the sort of speed that we're seeing in the front group.
Final adjustment still being made. Feet finally fastened into the shoes that are attached to the pedals when they hit transition. That is our leading group of 4. The 2 Brownlee brothers, Alistair and Jonathan, Mark Austin of Scotland, and Henry Schumann of South Africa.
Well, the 2 brothers looking over at each other, just switching positions. Mark Austin once again more than happy to do the required work to stay there. Henry Schumann right behind Mark Austin at the moment, and we're seeing now the sort of situation we've got used to when we look at a breakaway pack on the Tour de France. Athletes working closely together, more than happy to do their work, knowing that they can establish a very serious time gap. And if they keep working on that, the opportunity, 3 from 4 on the podium, that's a lot better odds than 3 from 45.
Mark Austin has raced with the Brownlees once already this season at the Olympic Distance World Triathlon Series race in Yokohama, round 3 of the World Triathlon Series for this year. He took part there. Alistair and Jonathan finished 4th and 5th respectively. Mark Austin finished 45th, so he was a long way down, but he has experience of racing at the top level, and what a swim he's had. These are the chasers, plenty of work to do.
It's these different circumstances in Commonwealth Games where we see the spread of ability. We've got used to, again, in the World Triathlon Series, that we could almost pick out the lead group after the swim. We could further establish who's going to be coming off the bike together. We take out the Europeans, we take out the USA athletes, some of the other athletes, and of course it makes it a very different situation. And I think it's the different conditions, the different situation that has made this race so interesting so early. A non-wetsuit swim, a tough bike course, athletes prepared to work themselves so hard, and again the opportunity for Mark Austin to make his mark here in Scotland is absolutely sensational.
Big group further back, Richard Murray and Vian Sulvat in that group, I think, with work to be done. There's Murray, Tony Dodds, Vian Sulvat on the left, Jones of Canada, Ryan Sissons a little further ahead, Dan Wilson on the right, Sheldon of Scotland. He is another one who's been left behind after the swim in the transition. Grant Sheldon, number 16, will be hoping to do some damage as this group of about 12 climb up through the forest towards the highest point of the course.
Oh, that's going to be so disconcerting, so off-putting. Just working all the working going up the top. They just look over and they see 4 athletes working together coming down, and you have to say that you would think that the time gap is going to be opening and opening and opening, because we've got 4 athletes working together. Mark Austin perhaps struggling a little bit technically as he comes around that descending tight turn.
Got one down, Steve.
There is one athlete down.
Is that Schumann? Is that Henry Schumann who hit the buffers there? Yes, it was Henry Schumann. And then there were 3. Henry Schumann making a massive mistake on the left-handed turn, and he finds himself embedded in the protective bales that are there. The protection did its work, and Schumann appears to be unscathed, and he's back on his bike and riding away, but he's lost track of this group of 3 at the front.
Exactly what we're saying, the conditions of the course, how important they are. Just a slight misjudgment there. Okay, he's only lost a few seconds, but he's got to start from nothing. And Mark Austin now has gone from a situation 1 from 45, 1 from 4, and now 1 from 3. And the chances have to be, with this big chase pack, Are they going to work together? I don't know. It's just, to me, the three athletes away at the moment, it's really fallen into the Brownlee's lap, but only because they work so hard on the swim to establish that gap. And Mark Austin, fantastic. 20 years old, 4 years younger than Johnny Brownlee, but a man who's seizing his opportunity.
Well, this was the crash where Schoeman just couldn't make the turn into the bales, which are there to protect him from hitting the woodwork on the other side. So he's okay, but he's lost his place in amongst the leading group.
Well, around 12 or 13 seconds going into that crash. He's going to take him at least that, probably a few seconds more to try and re-establish, get back to the pace. So it's going to be a very, very tough call now for Schoeman. He's got to work individually to try to recapture the leading through, or come back into this big chase group. And, you know, if that happens, there's going to be a little bit of demoralisation setting in.
Sold-out of South Africa, Wilson of Barbados. At the back of this pack, there's Ryan Sissons out of the seat and trying to push some pace into this race. Well, what a story this is for the young Mark Austin, the 20-year-old studying mathematics at the University of Stirling at the moment. A member of the Victoria Park City of Glasgow Athletics Club and the Fusion Triathlon Club and the G3R Cycling Club. He was a man who was enjoying swimming and running, and aquathlons seemed ideal, and then picked up his bike and got stuck into triathlon. As we see what happened to Henry Schoeman, who was the first man out of the water. Well, this was trouble-free. It was later on when Schoeman's problems got more important as he found the plastic bales. Jonathan Brownlee, the younger of the two, quick in and out of transition. Alistair followed him, and plenty to get excited about for the Scottish fans here, because Mark Austin from Glasgow is riding with the brothers.
Well, up at Stirling, it's a very, very strong triathlon community under the guidance, the heading of coach Chris Volley. And Chris made a huge decision to go up to Stirling. It took the opportunity when it was offered to him, and he has developed the youngsters up there so well, so strongly, and that's just being shown right here, right now, with a 20-year-old Scot with two brothers from England who already between them have a multitude of world championships and, of course, the gold and bronze Olympic medals.
Austin just loses a little bit of distance on the brothers as they come through the technical turns. He may not be quite as an accomplished rider as Alistair and Jonathan as they put the brakes on here. There's Henry Schoeman, already off his bike and into the buffers, but he's back on two wheels now as Alistair and Jonathan get out of the saddle and push hard. Aaron Royal coming through. And there'll be a massive round of applause as they complete lap one. They'll be excited to see the Brownlee brothers, as expected, at the front of the field. And listen to the noise when they see that Mark Austin of Scotland is in third position at the end of lap one. What a start to this Commonwealth triathlon race. Only the third time the men's triathlon has been held at the Commonwealth Games. Manchester 2002, Canadian Simon Whitfield won with Miles Stewart of Australia second. Hamish Carter, who went on to win the Olympics, finished third. Simon Lessing was fourth. In Melbourne in 2006, Brad Carlefelt of Australia beat Bevan Doherty of New Zealand, with Peter Robertson third for Australia. Tim Don was fourth. There's never been a male Commonwealth triathlon medalist. Been a couple of Olympic medals, of course, the Brownlee brothers, as the chasers come through transition.
Well, Schoeman after that crash losing 40 seconds there. I just wonder if Mark Austin is just falling off the pace there, or is he just falling back a couple of metres so he can watch the line that the leading Brownlee takes going into the corner, and using their experience just to ensure that he can stay with their pace. 40 seconds, it's a big gap. Richard Murray down by 56 seconds, still there with Tony Dodds. Grant Sheldon, the other youngster from Scotland, there as well, as indeed is David McNamee. That lead group, they've established such a big lead on lap number one. Can they continue it on the second lap, or is the bigger chase group going to be able to cut down?
Riding along Lochside now, on their way for lap 2 of 5. 31 minutes and about 40 seconds of the triathlon complete. We'll expect the men's race to finish in around an hour and 50. possibly a minute or so over that. A couple of significant climbs on this bike course. Look at how many people have come out. Well, why wouldn't you? On a beautiful day like today, come out, soak up the sun, watch some top-level sport, and enjoy the beautiful surroundings of the Strathclyde Country Park. There's Tom Davison, the bike specialist. Let's see what he's got to offer here. He will be coming from a long way back after the swim, Tom Davison, but he's got the legs to bring himself back into contention, and there'll be a couple of happy faces in the group ahead of him as they see Davison arrive, because he can turn things around on two-wheel. He's got the pedigree to move it up a gear and bring the chasers closer to the leaders.
He certainly does, Harry. We certainly saw that in Auckland, where he closed the gap just phenomenally. And you can't say that an athlete like Ryan Sissons, his countryman from New Zealand, relies on him, but he certainly takes advantage of the sort of pace that Tom can lift. He has the ability not just to break from a group, but to maintain, to sustain that hard time trialing pace. And the difficulty is, with no disrespect to these great athletes here, who can stay with Tom Davison when he's really got his head down and he's working hard to close the gap? Because he's looked around and he's thought, is there anybody who's going to go with me, or do I now take a chance myself to try and close? If I can work with the leading group, and there is that possibility, then just perhaps I can put myself in with a chance of a podium position.
The leading group: Alistair Brownlee of England, Jonathan Brownlee of England, Mark Austin of Scotland.
And again, Mark Austin just dropping off by a metre, a couple of metres as we go round a bend. He follows the line. This is a man who is gaining experience by the second, working with the two of the greatest athletes in the world.
Well, you can bet your bottom dollar that Alistair Brownlee will be barking instructions at Mark Austin. That's the way he rides. He will not keep his mouth shut at all, and once he's got used to the fact that he and Johnny are joined by the young Scot Mark Austin, he'll keep him in the picture, he'll boss him around, he'll bully him in a nice way and keep him out of trouble.
Well, when you're leader of the pack, that's what you've got to do. But the leader of the pack at the moment, Mark Austin, not just content to follow, but looks over and says, yeah, I'll do my work, because if I do that, I'll stay with you two guys, and you're putting me in a strong position. Matt, won't that be great for the Scottish crowd if Mark Austin can stay there? These early stages, and they're moving away. They really are moving away.
Well, the Brownlee boys are not going to hold back on two wheels. They'll force the pace, give themselves the best possible shot at medals, and Mark Austin is along for the ride.
Tight corner there. Austin drops back again, just that metre, couple of metres, gets round safely. He's going to have seen Schoeman crashing, learnt from that and thinking, okay, I'm more than happy just to drop back. I'll lose a tenth of a second. I can get that back immediately after the corner. And all the time now, we'll get a clearer vision when we get to the end of lap number 2 of the bike section. But at the moment, they're still holding, they're still moving over. We're seeing a little bit of concentrated work now coming from the big chase pack. But there are gaps beginning to form just as the riders go to the front. There's the crossover. What is the time gap?
Yeah, the front three eyeballing the chasers. Here they are, Austin, Brownlee and Brownlee, as the brothers and the 20-year-old Scot head back towards us, but via a steep uphill section first.
I think if there were any doubts in the young man's mind, they would have really come through by now, and he'd be thinking, what am I doing here? Do I dare to stay here? But that hasn't happened. He's going through Mark Austin's mind right at the moment. Is, I had a great swim, I worked it, I deserve to be here. Anyone can get a breakthrough, perhaps this is mine. And watch him going up the hill. As soon as the Brownlees come out the saddle, that's what Mark does. Again, he's learning by the second. He's in stature of his racing is going to be second to none when he goes away from this race.
Well, he lists his hero as being the Scottish swimmer Michael Jameson, who hasn't had things all his own way today, and maybe if things carry on, it'll be Mark Austin who's making the headlines tomorrow rather than his hero Michael Jameson. Long way to go, of course. Also lists Will Clark and the Brownlee brothers as his idols, and now he's racing with them. This chasing pack is working pretty well, but Tom Davison hasn't quite caught them. I think it's just a matter of time before Davison joins in the fun and starts to control things at the front of this peloton.
Well, coming with approaching the 2 laps on the bike. So Davison has moved up there. There we just see Ryan Sissons there alongside Danny Hawksworth. Wait and see if Davison does join, but it's going to be a big effort with 3 laps to go. So depending on what the time gap is, or Davison still with significant amount of work to try to establish contact with that big chase group.
Davison can see them, but he can't quite reach them. It would be useful for that group if he was in control by the time they came downhill. As Alistair, Jonathan and Mark Austin descend, Davison is just beginning his climb.
Well, a little bit more incentive if it's needed for the 2 Brownlee boys and Mark Austin. They see Tom Davison trying to re-establish contact, so there's going to be no backing off whatsoever. Good cornering by Austin. Just leans right, comes right outside, takes the best line through, re-establishes contact with the back wheel in front of him, and the leading 3 stay as the leading 3.
Chasing group making the hairpin turn at the top of the hill. They'll just eyeball Tom Davison on the final stages of his climb as they roll down towards the side of the loch. 38 minutes done, and what a great start to this race.
Tremendous start. It's that big turn, that 180-degree turnaround. That's where the extra few seconds get lost. Going through in a group of 2, 3, 4, maybe 5, we can maintain the speed, maintain the line. When you come in with a great big group like that, as we're seeing with the chase group, then necessarily there has to be a backing off. The first couple of riders will get through, and then everybody else is aware of what might happen, and they're going to take evading action just in case.
There's Davison, still hasn't quite caught the chasing group. He will. Sooner the better as far as those hunting down the Brownlees and Austin are concerned. Riding above the chasing group now as they jostle for position and share the workload at the front of this peloton.
You talked about Alistair Brownlee bossing the front pack quite rightly there, Matt. And of course, if you're bossing just another couple of athletes who want to be bossed, they want to be taking up. Again, it's one of the critical differences, trying to boss a big group of 12 when they're thinking, well, maybe I should be just sitting back, saving my legs, rather than being in such a strong possibility of a podium slot, as we're seeing in the first 3. People are going to respond so much more quickly. Davison's still trying to establish contact, and you know, what is this going to take out of his legs? We know he's probably the strongest cyclist out there on the course, but he's going to re-establish, he's got to move through the group. Is he going to try to take it directly from the front? And if he does so, are we going to have the athletes chasing hard, or is he really going to try to break a break by himself?
Holdsworth of Jersey, Bailey on the left, Schumann, who was with the leaders, then he had his crash and has joined the chasers, and it looks like Tom Davison is about to join them as well. He'll slot in, refuel at the back, and then don't be surprised to see him weave his way towards the front and start dictating from there.
It's almost Tom's raison d'etre here in the triathlon world to re-establish contact. Of course, Tom was really quite ill a couple of years ago, wasn't he, Mal? I believe the story that I read, that he was bitten by a snake and he was recovering from a spider indeed. And you know, when he started last season, he said it really is, everything is bonus now. So yeah. I guess another year on, and he just thinks, well, I've got nothing to lose.
8 weeks to recover from that spider bite. The story goes that he wasn't feeling well. Then he called his mum. I heard it was here in Scotland somewhere. He called his mum. She said, go to the hospital, and he was told that he was lucky he did. But he's a young man with a good future, excellent rider, and look how he's eaten up the ground, working on his own. Always tough to be a lone rider. It's not often you see anyone do this in triathlon. Close the gap on your own without anyone to help you force the pace, and he's up with the chasing group now after all that hard work. Time to drink and relax for a few seconds at the back of the pack. Hard work still to come for the man from Christchurch in New Zealand.
Slotting in at the back, has indeed slotting in the back is Mark Austin. Again, just a little gap opens out of the saddle, re-establish contact.
Now after that effort by Tom Davison at the back of the pack will rejoin the leaders, the Brownlees, and Mark Austin crossing the line at the end of lap 2. And another cheer, almost disbelieving cheer, that Mark Austin has managed to stay with the Brownlee brothers. He won't be going anywhere, that's what they hope anyway, as they head out on lap 3.
Sorry, Matt, absolute lift there for Mark Austin. Every time he comes through past this big crowd here in the stand, they're going to lift him through, and again, the incentive to stay there, the possibility of a medal. It's waiting for the time difference. Wow, it's stretching by the very second. There we go, effort again, out of the saddle, working hard up this short hill. Mark Austin stays in contact, happily stays in contact.
Now, has Tom Davison made a move yet? He's working his way up through the field. He's moved up to about 4 places in front of the back marker. And it'll be at the start of this 3rd lap on the flat where we expect to see Davison try and do some damage and potentially take 1 or 2 of these decent runners with him and give themselves a chance of making their way up through the field on the 3rd phase of the triathlon, the 10,000 metre run. All that to come.
Well, the gap, the time gap, out from 45 seconds at the end of lap number 1 to just outside a minute, 1 minute and 5 seconds at the end of lap number 2. So it really emphasises what a difference when you get athletes working hard in a small group can make. They keep stretching this out. We take another 20 seconds and 20 seconds perhaps. It looks like Mark Austin could win in with a good shot of a Commonwealth Games medal. Action beginning to start now. We're seeing a little bit of emerge, a little bit of speed. We've stayed here too long, 2 laps gone. If we're going to start working, that time gap will have really woken people up. They know now they've got to work hard because however strong the run is, if they're coming in with a big 2-minute gap, the chances of making the podium are highly unlikely.
Yeah, a little bit of urgency creeping into the race now. Aaron Harris of England on the right, 3rd of the English racers in this competition this afternoon. He's got lots of good triathletes in there. Try and give you the check on the names. 8 going through is Dan Wilson from Australia. McNamee of Scotland from Irvine at the back of this chase group. David McNamee just shadowing Ryan Sissons of New Zealand. But it's this man in blue and white, Mark Austin, who's the best of the host nation triathletes here this afternoon. Mark Austin of Scotland leads the Commonwealth Games triathlon, and he's in good company with the Olympic champion and the Olympic bronze medalist, Alistair and Jonathan Brownlee, respectively.
Well, a critical part of the triathlon event now, halfway through the bike section, knowing that that lead is growing, but Mark Austin, I'm sure, feeling it, his legs are burning up there, but the realisation that if he can just control that burning, if he can stay with these 2 boys, what's happening here? There he is, a gap again, follow the line. Little bit of recap, time to just get a couple of breaths, looks up, bang, here we go again, and that lead stays way out there.
Just slipstreaming in, sensible work from Mark Austin, trying to refuel as best he can behind Alistair Brownlee. Off they go towards the western side of the loch, over by the M74 and the theme park, which is in full swing this afternoon. Doing excellent business on a glorious day. They'll make a turn, a hairpin turn, then double back before heading left for the climb, which is getting tougher by the lap.
Well, Mark Austin growing in stature with every single pedal there, you know, not afraid to do his work, just sees the athletes moving over, goes through. A little bit of an acceleration there, something to learn possibly, rather than just trying to maintain the same speed, but certainly a man willing to put his percentage of the work in to try to maintain that lead, that ever-growing lead, out, as we said, from 45 seconds at the end of lap number 1. They were a lot closer than that by the end of the swim, putting in a further 20 seconds. And now again, a little bit of work at the front of the pack. But it's a big group, and to try to get that rotation working properly, extremely difficult. Where's the leader of the pack, as we're seeing in the group of 3 at the front?
Well, Hawksworth from the Channel Island of Jersey is propping them up at the back. Tom Davison has weaved his way to the front of the chasing peloton, and he's now starting to control things once he's had a chance to catch his breath after all the hard work. The leaders are approaching the furthest point from transition. A little wave from Alistair. That's bound to be Alistair waving at the chasers, saying this is where we are, you're going to have to work hard to catch us. Alistair, Jonathan and Mark Austin heading in one direction, a massive group of chasers heading the wrong way as far as the medals are concerned.
Matt, what amazes me is the early results this season. Alistair Brownlee is coming back from injury. How many people out there were just, oh, well, it's all gone now. They're writing him off. And then, as we said, you know, early this week, Alistair said, at the moment, I really feel I'm in great shape. Maybe I'm unbeatable at the moment. Is that arrogance, or is it pure confidence of a man who's, you know, seen the other side, he's come back, and he is dominating, along with his brother and Mark Austin from Scotland, absolutely dominating this race?
Well, it's the confidence of a man who's won everything apart from this. The Commonwealth Games gold medal is the one thing that's missing for Alistair. He's been world champion. He is the defending, reigning Olympic champion. The Commonwealth Games gold. Didn't have a chance to race for it because there wasn't a triathlon in the programme in Delhi. There will be next time, I hope, in the Gold Coast, which is a bit of a hotbed of triathlon. A bit of a lack of pace on some of these turns. David McNamee spotted him in that group. Number 14 from Irvine, studying down in Leeds in Yorkshire at the moment. He's had some solid results over the Olympic distance in the World Triathlon Series in the last couple of years, but nothing spectacular. Maybe his chance will come, but it won't come and almost certainly until he's parked his bike, as Tom Davison starts to dominate the tactics at the front of the chase group. There's David McNamee.
Well, David's just changed his training group really quite recently, and I think it's a huge development phase moving out of the juniors, under 23s and into seniors. Some people just make that changeover immediately. Some people take a couple of years to go through it, and you know, obviously the British Triathlon Federation, the various national governing bodies around the world, they're looking at that, looking at the programs and the plans, and they're going to stay loyal to athletes who are making the progress. But you've got to make it as a senior. Once again, looking for the line coming round. A little bit tight there for Mark Austin, but re-establishes contact, out of the saddle, knows he cannot afford to get dropped. If he gets dropped from the Brownlee brothers, he's going to be in no man's land, and that he does not want.
Well, no wonder Mark Austin was slightly cautious on that turn, because that's where he watched Henry Schoeman come a cropper. Austin was right behind him, watching the South African fail to make the left turn and hit the barriers, so he's rightly just applying the brakes and keeping himself out of trouble.
Around the tight turn. Again, just a little bit of caution, perhaps another couple of seconds lost. And we see Danny Hawksworth there working hard just to try to maintain contact with that pack. Good race by Danny Hawksworth, had a tremendous swim. Unlucky perhaps not to make that first pack, but in the chase pack, he's going to be pleased with himself at the moment. And you can see now just the cruise down, the lack of pace. Okay, we're going downhill. We saw Johnny, Alistair, Mark working going down the hill rather than just backing off a little bit.
There's a sense of inevitability about the race now that one of the Brownlee brothers will win the Commonwealth title here this afternoon. I think that's pretty much guaranteed, assuming they stay on two wheels and keep out of trouble and one of them doesn't break down on the bike, as Tom Davis waves the motorcycle camera away, asks him to pull clear so he can avoid the fumes and get out of his seat and force the pace at the front of the chase group.
I guess we were anticipating this, that Davison would close the gap, which he did. Took a little bit of time, now has gone to the front. As you say, Matt, refueled, just re-established himself, coming through there, head down, leading through. Everybody seems happy just to follow him through. But how much of that big time gap, that 1 minute 5 seconds, are they closing when they have so many athletes to contend with? Because changing round, they've got to take their turn at the front. Otherwise, Tom Davison is not going to be able to close the gap entirely by himself.
51.5 minutes down, so about an hour to go or thereabouts before we know who is the Commonwealth champion for 2014. Which one of the Brownlees?
We talked with the Olympic Games that going in, you remember, Matt, back with Simon Lessing, hot favourite in Sydney in 2000. We did nothing till the Olympic Games in 2012, and that's where it really came through. Equally with the English athletes, the fourth place is fantastic. Of course, we saw Leander Kay from Wales picking the silver back in Manchester, and now with Vicky Holland, what a fabulous bronze medal to go along with Jodie Stimpson's gold in the women's earlier today. Looks like a very strong possibility of 2 medals for England, and a good possibility of 1 for Scotland as well in the men's event.
Jonathan Brownlee takes his turn at the front. Mark Austin is the meat in the Brownlee sandwich at this stage, with Alistair in 3rd position. Some of these scenes today, I'm reminded of some of the sights I've seen watching the Tour de France in the last couple of weeks, looking down on spectacular countryside and incredible scenery, bright blue skies and blue water alongside. Absolutely amazing conditions today at the Strathclyde Country Park. What a day of triathlon we've already had with the women's race, and more to come in the men's.
Well, it is a great venue, and that so many of the crowds have come out. It's really tremendous. Again, I think the 2012 Olympic Games in London was a bit of a game changer. We saw thousands and thousands of spectators come up. It was absolutely solid, and we're seeing that here again in the Commonwealth Games.
The end of lap 3, they're on their feet again, and the Scottish supporters are relieved and excited in equal measure to see that Mark Austin is still up with the Brownlee brothers. Alistair with a couple of words, looking over to Mark Austin. He'll have an instruction or two to give his young Scottish opponent. And the chase group appear to be fragmenting, with Tom Davidson injecting pace at the front. We've lost 1 or 2.
We're seeing the gaps beginning to... You know what Alistair Brownlee is saying to Mark Austin, of course. He's saying, you stay with us, you do a little bit of work, you have every chance of medaling at the Commonwealth Games. So he's leader of the pack, but he's using, I'm sure, just the psychology there. Yeah, we're going to get you working, because if you do, you are going to be very, very well rewarded.
Chase group coming into transition, so we'll get an accurate idea now of the time difference between the leading trio and the chasing group. So Brownlee, and Austin finished more than a minute ago, their 3rd lap. The chasing group stopped the clock at 1.01, so 61 seconds is the gap after 3 laps, with 2 to go.
Well, staying just about the same, so the input of Davison there significant, because I was expecting that to have opened. Davison has really taken his opportunity. Can he close a minute in 2 laps? Maybe not, but maybe he can close down to a gap that can be bridged by the very, very good runners in this chase pack.
Grant Sheldon of Scotland also going through the 3rd of the Scottish trio in this competition this afternoon. Look at the crowd, 6-7 deep on both sides of the road here.
This is where the strength comes in, the difficult turns, the inclines, the climbs up. Let's see, moving away now. Who's that now? Is that Conor Murphy just gone off the front?
Bit of movement coming from the back of the pack as we head. This is a different group of 3. This isn't our leading group. I think these guys have become detached from the chase group. And that white of Northern Ireland, right of Barbados. And these 3 coming to complete their 3rd lap. It's Butterfield of Bermuda, who is the 3rd member of this trio. They are just under 3 minutes off the pace.
Tyler Butterfield in, I believe, his 3rd Commonwealth Games. Tyler moving up the last few years to longer distance racing and having a lot of success there. So credit to him, changing his training somewhat to come back to represent Bermuda in the Commonwealth Games.
Tom Davison leading the chase group through transition as they complete their third lap of 5. Just to remind you, this is phase 2 of the Olympic distance Commonwealth Triathlon, with a 10,000-metre run to conclude. That will involve 3.3 kilometre laps around the park. One pretty stiff climb in the middle of each of those laps. It was a thrilling finish to the women's race this morning, with victory for Jodie Stimpson of England. We're hoping for a similar sprint finish, possibly between the two brothers, Alistair and Jonathan, at the end of the men's race this afternoon.
Critical, I think, for Mark Austin as to what the time gap is going to be. And he's had a great swim. He's worked so hard on the bike, along with Alistair and Jonathan, to maintain that lead. Now we're seeing a little bit of movement in the chase pack. And I guess this is where he's going to have to really dig in to concentrate, to stay with the two Brownlee boys. Because if it stays at a minute, and we've got people like Richard Murray in that chase group, then there is a possibility Richard Murray can close a minute gap on many, many athletes in the world, even at top level.
Tom Davison's pushing hard. He's got his head down, and he's asking a lot of these guys who are following him around the streets of the park here. And they're well spread, with Tom Davison attempting to close that gap, which was 61 seconds the last time we got an official time check at the end of lap 3.
Now, perhaps Tom Davison has decided that the only way he's going to close the gap is to take all the responsibility upon himself, to lead out from the front, and to try to make perhaps a wrong term, an honest race of it. To me, this is an absolutely honest race, that we see these athletes who worked from the very first stroke. You know, we watched Alistair Brownlee take 6 inches out of on his dive. I mean, absolutely sensational, absolute commitment, worked from the very first pedal stroke, took Jonathan along with him. Mark Austin had the clear-sightedness to go with him, to be prepared to work. Look at the expression on Mark Austin's face here. He's working hard to stay in contact, but he is staying in contact, and this is lap number 4 of 5.
So Austin is still with the Olympic gold and bronze medalists at the front of the field here, as they get out of the saddle and stuck into the hard work again. The Brownlee brothers forcing the pace, with Mark Austin of Scotland staying with them. Alistair looks behind to see if Mark Austin's able to stay with him, and the news from Mark Austin is that yes, he is. He can stay with them for the moment. Adrenaline is keeping him going. What do you know about Mark Austin's run, Steve?
Mark Austin, I say he trains under Chris Volley. I don't think I'm mistaken there. Chris Volley is a methodical coach. He will work and work and work the athlete's weaknesses. Now, I think it's very difficult for a junior to come through to try to match the speed, particularly on the running. That's the one that makes a difference. But I am convinced that his training will have been absolutely geared to maybe having a chance. He's proved that he does have a real chance on this, and I don't think he'll be found wanting. I think it will be focus and concentration, and knowing that the rewards will be sensational.
Some of the stragglers coming through, 6.5, 7 minutes off the pace, but every one of these Commonwealth Games triathletes welcomed warmly as they hit the blue carpet in front of transition, as we join the chasers once again, with Tom Davison of New Zealand injecting as much as he dares. The leading 3 already on the downhill slope, as Schoeman and the rest of this big group of chasers attempt to close them down. You feel sorry for Henry Schoeman. One mistake and his Commonwealth Games medal chances were gone. Meanwhile, the Brownlees and Mark Austin hit the end of the downhill slope.
Well, if anything, a little bit more confidence there from Mark Austin. Rather than backing off, he got just towards the bottom of the slope, and he was out of the saddle there. I don't think he would have attempted to do that on lap number 1 or lap number 2, but growing in confidence all the time, knowing that he's still in that lead pack and he's got everything to play for.
Matt Sharp of Canada, remember, he was with the leaders as well for a short while at the end of the swim. Couldn't stay with them, or maybe he just didn't fancy it.
I think you got the opportunity to go with the Brownlees. You've got to be prepared to hurt. You know, Who wouldn't fancy it? Who wouldn't love that opportunity as Mark Austin is getting now? Go, work, stay there, give yourself a chance.
Hawksworth of Jersey, he's playing the back of the pattern role, as we saw demonstrated this morning perfectly by Emma Jackson of Australia. Happy to sit in and bide his time at the back of the field and let Tom Davison do all the hard work out in front.
Well, it's Danny Hawksworth's opportunity, Matt, isn't it? Because he's not going to get on the podium, he knows that. However, if he can do, as you described, Emma Jackson just doing that, and let's come away from this, because we've got a breakaway here now.
Ryan Bailey has gone with Tom Davison. Bailey and Davison together, the two of them, the Australian on the right, Ryan Bailey, the New Zealander on the left in the black, Tom Davison, have said, anybody wants to come with us, now's the time to go. So far, no further takers.
It's what we'd expect either Ryan Sissons or Ryan Bailey to be the chasers going behind. Maybe Dan Wilson, but I haven't seen Dan featuring there. Now we do have a bit there, looking around, see if anybody's going to try to join them, because 3 will be a lot nicer than 2 working through. But back with Danny Hawksworth. Danny Hawksworth, he has to work his own race. If he has a relatively steady ride, saves his legs, then hopefully he's going to be able to run through a good few of these athletes in the same pack.
So these guys are effectively 4th and 5th. Bailey of Australia is 4th. Davison is effectively 5th at the moment. They have just the brothers and Mark Austin ahead of them. Can they close the gap by the end of lap 4? At the end of lap 3, it was 61 seconds. So we'll see if Bailey and Davison have taken anything out of that by the time they cross the line in transition in just a few moments from now to conclude lap 4, where they will take the bell with 1 lap to go.
I guess the experienced athletes in the chase pack, they're not going to be naive. They're going to know about Mark Austin. They'll be tracking how the way he's coming through right the way up. So they're not going to be unaware, but there will be a realization that maybe coming through, maybe staying with the Brownlees, is having to work very, very hard indeed, so that if they do now make this big effort, a possibility of getting on the podium.
Everybody out of sight beneath the summer foliage, and now the chase group depleted in numbers following the break, and there's been another break at the front. Mark Austin has been dropped by the Brownlee brothers. Disappointment for the Scottish crowd. It's not a huge gap, but it's 5 or 6 seconds now. The Brownlee brothers have decided that they've had enough company for the moment, and a little bit of a word from one to the other. The pace came, and this time Mark Austin couldn't match it.
Well, big tactics there. A lot of thought gone into it, I'm sure. And maybe it's not so much the Brownlees really upping the pace a significant amount, but that maybe Mark Austin has worked so hard to stay with them and is now just paying that price. But the important thing to me is that he went for it. If it doesn't work this time, next time maybe it will. The experience he will have gained by just being with Alistair and Johnny is just, you couldn't buy that. He's going to be a different athlete after this race.
The penultimate lap about to come to its natural conclusion, with the Brownlee brothers out in front, Jonathan on the right, Alistair on the left. Now it's the other way round as we see them from head on. They take the bell with 1 lap to go. Last time the gap to Davison's chase group was 61 seconds. We'll get an idea of what the gap is to Mark Austin, who's being roared through, but he looks a little weakened now. Mark Austin has given it everything in his quest to stay with the Brownlee brothers. He crosses the line. He's now 19 seconds adrift and looking a little shaken. He's fresh out of juice, I think, Mark Austin. And it won't be long, I imagine, before Ryan Bailey and Tom Davison catch him. What a shame for Mark Austin, but what a valiant performance from the 20-year-old Scot.
Guts and determination. He went for it, he will have learned from it, and he's going to come back a better athlete.
Well, he knows this course well, Mark Austin. He races here regularly, but will he have ever raced here on a day like today? In scorching afternoon temperatures, with not a lot of breeze, and against the best in the world? The answer is no. It was a new experience despite the local knowledge, as the chase pack hit the bell, with Bailey and Davison leading them through, and then a group of another dozen or so, including Murphy of Northern Ireland, Sissons, Sheldon of Scotland, Schoeman, who crashed earlier, Wilson, Jones of Canada, Dodds of New Zealand, McNamee of Scotland is up there as well, York Wilson of Barbados, Sharp of Canada, who was with the leaders for a while, and at the back, Danny Holtzworth from Jersey, as the leaders make their way onto the 5th and final lap.
Well, with that time gap closing just by a few seconds, maybe that's what's been needed by Alistair and Johnny Brownlee, that they think, well, okay, we've managed to stay out there. We can't afford just to back off a little bit. You never know what's going to happen on the run. So that's why they've decided to maintain, to push, to go that little bit farther. But I come back to Mark Austin, because I think that young man has been sensational. He had that pure guts, determination, didn't want to take the easy way out, decided he was going to go with him to stay there. And you just think on another day he may well be able to stay with them right the way through.
Yeah, Mark Austin, we're just hearing, is coached by Blair Cartman. Strong runner, although I think he might not be so strong today, looking as weary as he was as he crossed the line at the end of lap 4.
I remember Blair Cartmel as a very, very strong athlete, the junior athlete moving up to senior level.
With the chasers again, Tony Dodd of New Zealand, David McNamee of Scotland, Jones of Canada, Wilson of Barbados, same usual suspects. No one's, apart from Tom Davison and Ryan Bailey, briefly have been prepared to take it on. We'll see if Davison's breakaway was decisive, whether it puts him into a provisional medal position. Richard Murray is the man we need news about. Murray, where's he positioned at the moment? And is he in a strong position to fight his way back? He's with the chase group, 61 seconds behind. And Murray, we know, has excellent running capabilities. And at the moment, you'd probably say that if the brothers share gold and silver, one way or the other, Richard Murray is probably, in this situation, favourite for bronze.
He's got to be the favourite coming through to get onto the podium. And we're assuming, of course, that Alistair and Johnny are going to maintain this pace and they're going to run as strongly as they always do. But things can change.
Familiar faces, familiar riding styles. Alistair used to wearing #1, but because he's ranked behind Johnny at the moment in the World Triathlon Series standings, he's wearing 3. Johnny wears the #1 on his upper arm. And there were 5, there were 4, there were 3 for a long, long time as Mark Austin gave it everything. But in the end, he had to go. And the gap, well, it's significant now. There's no sign of Mark Austin as the brothers together ride away into the distance on their final lap now, with a 10,000 metre foot race between them to come.
Well, a couple of words as they just change leadership there. Still working hard, maybe a couple of words of encouragement. We've got to keep going, we've got to maintain this. We want to take a handy lead into the final discipline.
There he is, Mark Austin, after all the hard work, looking a little dejected, and he will soon be swallowed up by the chasing group. 3rd position will vanish shortly for Mark Austin. A courageous ride, couldn't believe his luck. For most of the 40k bike, he was able to enjoy it in the company of 2 of the best in the world.
You've got to recognise, like, he could easily have backed off and thought, maybe I don't deserve to be here, but he didn't. He thought, I've worked the swim, I do deserve to be here.
Somebody's is that Hawksworth? Is that Hawksworth coming through and pushing at the front? He's got I can see a 3, trying to spot that was 35 or 39 on his arm. It would be a surprise if Daniel Hawksworth, who was loitering at the back of the pack, suddenly has taken it upon himself to make a mini break. So this is a beautiful part of the world as the brothers soak it all up. One of Scotland's grandest houses was in the Strathclyde Country Park for a while. Hamilton Palace stood on the grounds. It was eventually demolished, sadly, as it fell further and further into repair. There's the remains of the Bothwell Hock Roman fort, and a Roman bathhouse can be seen in the park where the South Calder water flows into the loch. There's an arched Roman bridge as well across the South Calder nearby. Scenic part of the world to visit, lots of history, and a bit of history potentially being made here this afternoon. It's Hawksworth. Daniel Hawksworth from Jersey, number 35, is having a little go himself.
Well, he sat towards the back of that pack for a long time. He's given his legs a chance to, if not have a rest, at least to take it a lot easier than most of the other cyclists in this group. And now he's taken his opportunity. Can he stay out there? Does he see himself with a chance of getting on the podium? That's a very, very big call.
Well, we saw and enjoyed all the courage shown by Mark Austin, and now it's Danny Hawksworth's turn to give himself 15 minutes of fame. Obviously fancies his chances going into the run, but realises that he needs a bit of a head start over these guys. And that group contains some strong runners. Sissons is solid enough. The man they all need to watch, of course, is Richard Murray. These two look likely to be picking up a gold and silver medal this afternoon. Alistair and Jonathan, chance to check out the chasers again as they head off in the wrong direction as far as they're concerned, in the right one as far as the brothers are concerned. So now they start to go to work again. No let-up throughout the duration, throughout the last hour and 13 minutes. Jonathan and Alistair Brownlee have shown the way. Joined for a good portion of that bike by Mark Austin, is now tucked in. He's just a man in a pack now, having had the limelight for so long. Henry Schoeman is just in front of him. Schoeman was with the leaders before he crashed out. This is a race that's been full of stories.
Well, I guess Mark Austin now is going to be mixed emotions there. He's thinking back what might have been, but knowing that he did have the guts to go for it, and now sitting at the back of the pack, and I'm sure his legs are going to be absolute agony for him. He's got to try to stay with this pack as they come really not too far away from transition area.
Well, we know he's a good runner. He's got a chance to refuel at the back of the pack here. I can't see that he's going to have much left in the tank, but if running is his specialty, then maybe, just maybe, he will have something else to offer to this race. It's
going to be a tough call with the work that he did. It just got him through what I was saying, and then when it disappears, when you just, wow, that's it, we've gone now, and you just saw the effects that it's had already. That'll be a very, very hard run for the young man.
So as they climb, the Brownlees are on their way towards the second half of the fifth and final lap, the second transition. They'll be hoping to get that right. Remember, Johnny's mistake in transition in London cost him that 15-second stop-go penalty in the Olympic Triathlon in Hyde Park. Had to suddenly stop, I think it was on the third lap of the run, and stand still and get the 15-second count before he was allowed to continue on his way. And what a result it was. Held on for the bronze medal, with Javier Gomez taking the silver and Alistair clinching the bronze. What a day that was in Hyde Park, and here they are again. Neither of them are Commonwealth Games medalists. Both will be today if they avoid any incidents on the final stage of this 40k bike. Well,
not too long to go now, closing in. Real time out to 1 hour 15 minutes, and the time on the women's race this morning, Matt, much faster than I'd anticipated with this tough course, and I guess that's going to happen with the men's as well.
Yeah, we were expecting a final time of around 2:07, but it was considerably quicker than that. Maybe the climb wasn't quite as brutal as people had anticipated here in the park.
We had a lot of athletes working hard in the lead packs, both on the bike, then of course on the run. And we've seen initially with the lead pack on the men's race with both the Brownies and Mark Austin, that made the difference. And so opening up to 45 seconds on lap number 1, taking it out to around a minute, and really maintaining to within a few seconds that time gap as we approach the end of the cycle discipline.
Well, when we talked to the Brownlees before the start of the race, they discussed the fact that there wouldn't be any tactics within the English team, but they would have some tactics within the family, and so it's worked out. They had Mark Austin along for the ride for the majority of the 40k bike, then they ditched him, or he couldn't stay with them anymore, and then they said, we'll have some tactics, but when it comes to the 10K run, it will be a race to the finish between the two of us. No tactics there, so expect some fireworks over the next half hour or so as they come towards the conclusion of the two-wheel stage, phase 2 of this triathlon. The swim, they were in good shape. In the bike, they hit the front, dominated the two-wheel phase, and here they are about to be warmly welcomed back into transition on two wheels for the final time. They'll park up their bikes, their feet are ready to exit the cycling shoes. Johnny on the right just rests his right foot on top of the shoe and does the same with the left. Alistair performing the same manoeuvre. Two of the best in the world, the Olympic champion, the Olympic bronze medalist, arriving at the Commonwealth Games transition area, hit the dismount line just perfectly, and it's a synchronised arrival for the Brownlee brothers in transition, showing the way here at the Glasgow Commonwealth Games. Bike positions adjacent, they've got to get this right, helmet in the box, shoes on. Who will lead first? Looks like Johnny's just got ahead of Alistair, but they're pretty much together as they head out for a 10,000 metre run. 3 laps of 3.3 kilometres to decide who will be the Commonwealth champion for 2014. Which of the brothers will take the gold?
Well, whatever that bike ride took out of their legs, neither of the brothers is showing it, because they just went out of transition areas so fast. Alistair giving best by a couple of metres, but within 10 or 15, that gap is closed and they're running pretty much together. I know they're brothers, but sometimes you watch them coming into transition area and they look like twin brothers almost. The way, as you say, Matt, they do synchronise that. I'm sure it's an unconscious thing. Now, what is going to be the time gap? Because that was around a minute before. Well, Danny Hawksworth takes it, holding that just under a minute.
Hawksworth, third into transition at the end of the bike. He'll be first to leave amongst this massive group. Murray's in there, Sheldon of Scotland. Mark Austin will be exhausted as he hangs up his bike, happy to see the back of it before he can head out on the 10K run. And we'll see who's first to strike and put themselves in contention for a medal here. Richard Murray is just over a minute down. It's well within Murray's capabilities over 10,000 metres to put himself in bronze medal position. There's Mark Austin, warmly applauded out of transition, and Tom Davison's work is done. He is the best cyclist, but he's a long way from being the best runner.
Back at the head of the field, still shoulder to shoulder. There were so many times we've seen this. The two brothers there. Looks like Alistair's feeling a little bit of pain. Johnny looks the more comfortable at the moment, but looks, of course, can always be deceiving, particularly with these two.
Yeah, it's often that we see this, the two of them together, but I can't remember the last time I saw them arrive in transition on their bike with no one else for company. That could be a first at the very top level. People looking for high fives. There won't be any of that yet. There's a lot of work to do here as Alistair takes it up. Distinctive running styles, stiffer, straighter upper body from Alistair. Johnny with the lower hand and arm movement. At least it's distinctive for you and me because we watch them so often.
They just look so good. I mean, the tactics, it's no secret now. The tactics of both Alistair and Johnny is we come out of transition, we run the first 2K, 2.5K as if that's all we have to worry about. Try to open a gap if we do come out with anybody, and then everybody's hurting after that. So that's the advantage. That's a tactic, and it's proven to work many, many times.
Synchronized transition here from the brothers. And away they went. Johnny first to strike. Well, that's the serene scene in transition now, and that's the rather unfortunate Tom Davison. Had an awful lot of work to do in the scorching heat of the afternoon here in Glasgow. Left behind, out of the water, did all the hard work. He'll be thanked possibly later by maybe Richard Murray and maybe by the Australian Dan Wilson and maybe by Danny Hawksworth if they can have an impact now on this final stage. The brothers are on their first climb. So 3 laps. They're on their first lap of 3 now. Mark Austin down in 19th position with the Brownies for so long, and more than a minute behind now as Richard Murray starts to work his way up through the field.
Early stages, of course, on the run, and an opportunity on lap number 1 to see just how much the cycle discipline has taken out of the legs. With the Brownies, it didn't appear to be much at all, and certainly they were working very, very hard at the front. Tom Davison did appear to be suffering tired legs as he goes through, and back at the head of the field, Alistair Brownlee with the grimace still, trying to move away from Johnny, it appears, and Johnny not allowing him to at all.
Yeah, Alistair on the downhill leg here, just pushing along quite nicely. Johnny back in second, and there is a bit of a gap, not insignificant, as Richard Murray makes his way in his first lap, more than a minute down, quickly moved up into outright 3rd position, bronze medal position, and Alistair and Jonathan have become separated.
Jonathan looks to be working desperately hard to get back on. Is he going to manage it?
There's Danny Hawksworth from Jersey. Tony Dodds of New Zealand. Is that Mark Austin? No, it's Wilson from Barbados. Shower and a drink for the Olympic champion. Now, has Johnny closed the gap? We saw it open up. It would be an early strike for first position for Alistair. Jonathan isn't beaten yet. The gap is only a second, so it's not a decisive break from the older of the 2 brothers.
Alistair seems to be holding that first position, a couple of meters there, but it's not closing. We've expected before, if there has been a gap, that whichever of the brothers is in second place, they look to close really quite quickly. Now, is Jonathan just holding back slightly, or is he unable to close that gap at the relatively early stage of this run?
Well, Jonathan hasn't let it grow significantly, but Alistair is certainly the outright leader now. They've had plenty of sprint finishes over the years. Alistair's won most of them. Jonathan has got the better of him from time to time.
And I thought there that Jonathan did look to be coming back on Alistair, but it hasn't proved so. Alistair, a couple of checks now over his left shoulder to see if the gap is staying open. He's obviously working hard to do so.
Roasting hot here this afternoon. Alistair has struggled in intense heat in the past. As he picks up another drink, gives himself another little shower, and Jonathan responds. And will he be about to rejoin his brother?
Well, now I'm worrying, Matt, because I'm looking at all the liquid that Alistair is trying to take on. I'm looking at the frequent glances back, and Johnny, and as you say, we remember back in Hyde Park just a little while ago now, just really going into the final 150 metres and had that collapse. Well, surely he will have learned from that experience and make sure he's been well hydrated throughout the whole of the race, and he seems to be taking on a lot of liquid at the early stages of the run. But Jonathan's closed that gap back up.
Yeah, Steve mentioned the collapse that Alistair suffered. It was during, I think, the first of the Olympic test events in Hyde Park, when it was decided that would be the Olympic triathlon venue. Alistair was leading all the way, and then suddenly he lost his ability to focus and find his direction. He was overtaken and ended up down in 5th or 6th position. This man's making his way up through the field. Richard Murray, powerhouse of a triathlete, run specialist. He's up home now over the 10,000 metres. He's in 3rd position, in bronze medal position at this stage. York of Canada is the next best. He's got a couple of the Australians for company there. And let's see who else. Is that David McNamee moving up through the field, along with Aaron Harris of England, the 3rd of the English triathletes. Aaron Harris has David McNamee for company. They're in about 7th or 8th position. Alistair's had another kick away from his younger brother, and this one is unmatched at the moment. Jonathan back in 2nd position. Familiar position for Jonathan, watching his older brother move away from him.
Very early stages for Alistair to make that break. Significant that he's chosen to do so. Spoke a little bit about his confidence at the start of the race, and that he feels he's in great shape at the moment. Made his move very early on. I think the important thing will be to see what the time gap is between not just Alistair but Jonathan, of course, as we get to the end of lap number 1 of these 3 running laps.
So 3,300 metres completed, or almost completed. 2 laps of 3.3 Ks each to go. The Olympic champion, the older of the 2 brothers, is leading the Commonwealth Games triathlon in the Strathclyde Country Park. Day 1 of the sporting programme. England have already taken the gold in the women's triathlon and the bronze as well through Jodie Stimpson and Vicky Holland respectively. Kirsten Sweetland took the silver. The brothers could be about to add another couple of medals. Richard Murray is slowly but surely fighting his way back into contention. Jonathan 5 seconds behind his brother at the end of lap 1.
And those 5 seconds really opened in the final 250, 300 metres of lap number 1. Well, it does look like Richard Murray is making inroads, but appearances can be deceptive. Let's get an official time check at the end of lap number 1. Just under a minute down, going into the run discipline.
Murray, big, powerful runner. This is where he's at his best. He's had some really solid results on the World Triathlon Series so far this season, including a 3rd in Yokohama and a 2nd in Hyde Park in London. He's always a man to watch once the swim is done and the bike has been parked. And at the end of lap 1, he's he's a minute and 6 seconds behind Alistair. So we'll see how much he closes that gap by the end of lap 2.
Possibilities are there, of course, but it appears at the moment that the gap is staying pretty consistent. Then the chase group are a further 17, 18 seconds down. And another few seconds. Then we have Aaron Harris and David McNamee from England and Scotland, respectively. They're running in 7th and 9th position, so good performances there.
Gap is growing further for the Olympic champion. Younger brother Jonathan, 2 years the difference between them. Alistair 26, Jonathan 24. Live in separate houses now. They always shared a house before the Olympics, but were able to move out and have enough space for all their new toys after they'd taken the medals in Hyde Park in August 2012. Still see each other. I saw a quote from Johnny, yeah, we still see each other 5 or 6 times a day for training.
I think just reading through that, it appears it's Johnny is the one who will persuade Alistair to come out training. That Johnny always seems to be prepared, ready to go, and Alistair is the one who sometimes needs a little bit of encouragement, but no disrespect intended there at all, because they're both absolutely superb athletes. They've proved time and time again. They're proving it here today at the Commonwealth Games.
Gap growing significantly as Jonathan comes past the lapped runner. Alistair on his own now. He won't mind about that. The gap grows even further. Younger brother Jonathan just can't keep pace with Alistair.
Well, is Richard Murray going to be able to close this gap? Is it Alistair improving the speed and the pace, or is it Johnny just backing off a little, just slowing down gradually? Because as we saw with Mark Austin when they're where when the cracks do develop, they can be very quick, very sudden, and they can be bridged very quickly. Now, I think Jonathan Brownlee is hurting, but I think he's still running strongly and maintaining that strength in his run. But we have seen many, many times before where Richard Murray has closed really quite big gaps. Can he do it today? Certainly, it looks like Alistair is going to stay away. With Johnny just dropping a few seconds on lap number 1, but maintaining around a minute gap from Richard Murray here in 3rd place.
Murray 17th in that Olympic Games won by Alistair Brownlee in Hyde Park in 2012. 25 years of age, born in Cape Town, lives in Europe, based in the Netherlands these days. Had the excellent results, particularly over the sprint distance so far this season. First win came over the shorter distance in Hamburg in 2012. Second a couple of times in sprint distance races as well, but he's very handy over 10,000 meters, the full Olympic distance. His swim is the area that needs attention. He's never with the first group out of the water. But he knows, a bit like Gwen Jorgensen, the American who leads the World Triathlon Series at the moment, he knows that if he's got a minute and a half to make up, coming off the bike and into the run, he's always got a chance.
Well, I'm sure Richard will be looking to improve the swim. Certainly we've seen with Gwen the last winter, she's come out as a different wet fish animal. She's really learned to develop the swim. Previously with her it would have been a wetsuit. Maybe that's not going to take too much time, but a non-sweat wetsuit, we've got used to her losing speed, but no more with Gwen Jorgensen. Richard Murray needs to do that, I'm sure he will.
Number 3 leads the race. Alistair Brownlee, the Olympic champion, former world champion, took it on right from the start of the 3rd phase of this triathlon. Swam well, rode solidly as a 4, then as a 3, then finally as a 2, takes another shower, has a little drink, gets himself at the side of the course into the shade wherever possible, deep on his 2nd lap of 3. 1 hour 33.5 minutes. We expect the race to conclude around the 1 hour 50 mark, and it looks as this stage as if Alistair Brownlee will be adding the Commonwealth gold to the Olympic title he won in London in 2012.
It doesn't appear to be any slowing down of the leg turnover there with Alistair at all. Looks very strong upper body. Still moving well, moving away from Johnny, it appears. Johnny, we're not sure now what's happening with him and Richard Murray, if the time gap is closing. Not getting any information from out on the course at the moment. Things will be, of course, much more clear at the end of lap number 2. But Alistair Brownlee leads, Johnny Brownlee in 2nd, Richard Murray from South Africa in 3rd. Current standings halfway through the 10-kilometre discipline on this Commonwealth Games triathlon. Well, any doubts with Alistair Brownlee? Just watching him there, just seem to be picking up the pace, head a little higher. Stride length good, stride length fast, powerful arms, really dragging the elbows back every single time. Looks good, running fast.
He's had his problems with injury in the last couple of years, and illness. Had appendicitis in 2012, kept him out for a while. Injuries have been more commonplace. Has an altitude tent in his apartment that he sleeps in sometimes. The idea, he says, is that it stimulates your body to produce more and more blood cells, so it's better at carrying blood. His idea is that it doesn't cost you anything, so you might as well do it. That's his commitment to being as fit as he can possibly be. Both of his parents doctors, both the brothers' parents doctors in Yorkshire, and Alistair won a spot to study medicine at Cambridge University. He's a bright boy as well, gave it up after a term, deciding that it was difficult to manage alongside his athletic career, and it was a good decision for Alistair to pursue his career as a triathlete. There's Jonathan, the younger of the 2 brothers, wearing number 1, holding the silver medal position here this afternoon in the park.
Well, Alistair flying still as he just accentuates his lead, moving a little bit further away from Johnny. Johnny, if anything, maybe getting a a second wind there, seem to be picking up a little bit, and we are now approaching very close towards the end of lap number 2.
Richard Murray flying along, doesn't mind the heat, clearly comfortable out here. South African, looking solid. Tail end of lap number 2. Now, we'll have a look behind Murray in a moment, see who's behind him in 4th. I think that's a lapped runner there, is it, Steve?
I'm just looking down at that. I'm not sure what's happening there. We see the runner towards the right looks we were.
No, we're further back. We're further back. It's Bailey and York.
Yes. Oh, York looking very strong there coming through, but different circumstances. There's Aaron Harris from England, Aaron Raw from Australia, and David McNamee from Scotland just chasing those through.
So McNamee looking likely to finish as the best Scot here this afternoon. For quite a while it looked as if Mark Austin would have that honour, but at the end of his time with the Brownies on the bike, it all went backwards for Mark Austin. Look forward to seeing better things from him in the future as Alistair gets towards 2/3 distance on his 10,000 metre run.
Oh, we did have a glimpse here of the athletes in 4th through to 8th position, and again, I guess good news for Great Britain overall, with another English athlete and one Scottish athlete there. So good news for the future. But here comes our leader, Alistair Brownlee, our 2nd place, Jonathan Brownlee, at the end of lap number 2 with possibly just over 10 minutes of running to come.
Alistair takes the bell. 1 hour, 37 minutes, 54 seconds. 3.3 Ks to run. Runs past his bike and the rest of the wheels that were left after the ride. They're on their feet to welcome him, recognising the greatness of the man. And his younger brother gets encouragement and sympathy in equal measure. 13 seconds behind now. And it'll be interesting to see the time difference between Jonathan and Richard Murray, who is in bronze medal position. Here he is, Murray about to make the turn, looking over, seeing if he can get an idea of how much he's got to find over the last 3,300 metres. But I would suggest that Jonathan is just too far in front.
I agree, Matt. I think Jonathan had a very good second lap there, because you know, there's always a possibility a small time gap opens and then all of a sudden, as we saw with Mark Austin, it just increases dramatically. That didn't happen. Jonathan lost a further 8 seconds only on his elder brother in lap number 2. So I guess it's an indication of just how well Alistair is running. Johnny's certainly not running badly at all, just a few seconds down. And look there, still maintaining almost a full minute over Richard Murray in 3rd place.
Well, that's the way the medals will go if everybody stays healthy in the last 10 minutes or so of this Commonwealth Games triathlon. The gold will go to Alistair, the silver to Jonathan, and the bronze to Richard Murray. But sport's a funny thing, and weird things happen, especially in the final stages of these endurance races. We've seen it many times in marathons, in triathlons. Form, speed, energy suddenly vanishes, and suddenly medal positions are changed. York of Canada is 4th at the moment. Bailey is 5th, Harris 6th, and David McNamee is the best of the Scottish trio in 3rd position at the moment, but nearly 2 minutes off the pace of Alistair Brownlee.
Well, good to see David up there. Very good to see Aaron Harris up there in 6th position, because the British Triathlon Federation said the selection procedure was not geared to having the 3rd athlete as a domestique. I think young Aaron Harris has proved he's deserved his place, certainly deserved his place to be in 6th position at the moment, and doesn't appear to be likely to be losing many, if any at all, positions on the final lap of the final discipline.
But if he stays on his feet and finishes with victory here today, this could represent the first of 2 gold medals for which Alistair is striving over the course of these Commonwealth Games, because on Saturday, the first ever Commonwealth Games mixed triathlon relay will take place. And the way things stand, it'll be the Brownlee brothers going with Jodie Stimpson and Vicky Holland. If those 4 athletes are all fit and ready to race on Saturday, the British quartet, a different quartet, the one I just listed with Lucy Hall replacing Jodie Stimpson, won the world title in Hamburg just prior to the Commonwealth Games. So England will go in with those 4 athletes as the favourites for Saturday's mixed team relay, which means that Alistair, if he holds on here and takes individual gold, could add a team gold to that, and Jonathan could get a Commonwealth Games gold to add to the silver he looks likely to win here this afternoon.
I think it's not just the recovery, but if there's any likelihood of injury, because that's what the athletes and of course their coaches will be looking at, that if we put ourselves on the line, and let's face it, just 48 hours recovery from a hard race certainly is going to take its toll, take its stress on the body. So I think they will be looking at that and evaluating, as you said, with Lucy in on the team in Hamburg for the World Championships. England were very strong throughout there. And I think Vicky Holland today was absolutely sensational, taking that bronze medal, and she thoroughly deserves her place. Let's have fingers crossed that everybody comes towards the end of today. There's no injury problems, no recovery problems, and England can put out their strongest team.
Alistair Brownlee leads the Commonwealth Games triathlon. Almost done. He's on the final lap of phase 3, the run. 10,000 metre affair in the boiling heat of the afternoon. Past the beach comes Richard Murray in bronze medal position at the moment into the shade, and on his way in an attempt to get near silver medal position, but that's looking an impossible task now. He will have to settle for bronze the way things stand at the moment.
Well, the running at the front is so quick. Only another 5, maybe 5.5 minutes, and we're going to see the finish coming through here. To be able to run that 30-minute, just outside 30 minutes possibly, off of such a hard bike course. Again, a measure of the strength, just the ability of the athletes at the front here. Because let's make no mistake, Alistair and Johnny Brownlee had to work very hard at the in the front pack. Richard Murray, a lot of other athletes around him, and not being able to close the gap down by many seconds at all.
These guys all jostling for position, hoping for a top 10 finish. David McNamee of Scotland amongst them as the leader hits his stride once again. He can start to taste another big championships heading his way. Plenty of support for Alistair Brownlee. He had all the British support when he won gold in Hyde Park in 2012, and his younger brother here, Johnny, won the bronze. And now they're seeing the 2 of the best triathletes in the world, but certainly 2 of the 3 best Olympic distance triathletes in the world, with only Javier Gomez-Noya to match them with consistency. Seeing them race here in Glasgow. And Alistair has left it all out in the park. He said right at the start of the season, the World Triathlon Series was less important than the Commonwealth Games, because it comes around only every 4 years and it might not come around for him again. So he wanted this medal, and the way things stand, he's going to get this medal. There he is, the leader, the Olympic champion. When he's fit, he's the world #1. There's been no one to touch him in the last 3 or 4 years. When he's at his best in full flow, it's a magnificent sight. Alistair Brownlee eating up the ground here. Grant Sheldon of Scotland making a bit of a move, and he's got a long way to go. There's Mark Austin, who was with the Brownlees for such a long period of time on the bikes. What a brave performance from Mark Austin. Back with the leader now. Alistair Brownlee on his way to another gold medal.
Well, Alistair, not just physically strong when he's fit, but crucially, absolute crucial importance, is mentally strong as well. And as we talked about, the confidence, almost the arrogance, but that's not the correct term. It's the confidence of knowing that when he races well, when it is best, when he's not beset by injury, by illness, then he truly believes that he can beat anybody in the world. He came into the race today, into the Commonwealth Games, believing that, and he's asserted his authority throughout. Came out the swim in the lead pack, worked so hard on the bike, immediately on the run, that first half a kilometre, went for it. Jonathan stayed with him, and then when Alistair made his second move, Jonathan unable to match it, dropped a few seconds on lap #1. And Alistair, he doesn't need to be herding like this now, but he wants to. He wants to prove it to himself that he's over the mishaps from the early season, that whoever is in the field, he can win.
And when you see Brownlee grimace and gurn like that, you know that usually there's a gold medal coming his way.
Well, I think Alistair running just around 30 minutes for this 10 kilometres on a not easy course by any means. Johnny Brownlee chasing him through at the moment, dropped 5 seconds on lap number 1, a further few seconds on lap number 2 to be going in 15, 16 seconds down, but doesn't appear to have closed off, maintained that lead over Richard Murray in 3rd place. Back with the leader, back with Alistair Brownlee. Maybe a minute and a half, a minute and 3/4 of running to go, closing in on the title that he so wants and so deserves.
Last stretch of this 10,000 metre run for Alistair Brownlee. He's behind the water sports complex. He'll turn to his right and then hit the blue carpet again. One more glance over his shoulder just to check that no one was there. Johnny's nowhere to be seen. He's shown he will have the bragging rights within the family again this afternoon. Fiercely competitive between the two of them. Close family, excellent brothers, but fiercely competitive when they're out on the roads. And when it comes to a 10,000 metre run, Alistair's once again showing who's boss here.
Well, no slowing down at all. He could back off right now. Maybe he's just going to slow down as he gets into the final straight, the final 100 metres. The acknowledgement from the crowd is going to be absolutely superb. You know, Alistair will pay that back. He relishes the crowd. He really feels that it lifts him. All the major championships, even the not so major races, he will react to the crowd. He's going to be in sight of the crowd in a very few seconds now, still maintaining that fast pace, still looking absolutely superb, still holding the same cadence as he hones in now, as he hones in to the final of the big 4 titles that he hasn't been able to compete for so far. He's the Olympic champion, he's been world champion, he's been European champion, and now 3 becomes 4 as Alistair Brownlee runs in to take the Commonwealth title, picks up the England flag. Here he goes.
Flag in each hand for Alistair Brownlee. And it will be an English triathlon double on day 1 of the Games. Jodie Stimpson came through to win the women's race. Alistair picking up flags from all the nations offered to him here this afternoon. A chance to stroll across the line. He'll wait for Johnny to hit the carpet before he finishes. Alistair Brownlee, the Olympic champion, is now the Commonwealth champion as well. Brownlee takes the gold medal in Glasgow. Younger brother Jonathan able to ease up as well as he adds Commonwealth silver to his Olympic bronze of 2012. The brothers showing the way once again at the top level of the sport. The pre-race favourites have done what they came here to do. And it will be Richard Murray who takes the bronze for South Africa. And they will have quite a wait to see Richard Murray cross the line to claim that medal. Once again, mixed emotions here for Jonathan. Happy to have got a medal, but it's not the gold. He's had to watch his older brother claim that here today. What a fight back from a long way behind after the bite by Richard Murray of South Africa. His connections there to offer their congratulations. South Africa take a medal on day 1 of the 20th Commonwealth Games here in Glasgow. A bronze for Richard Murray in the men's triathlon, and the South African team could be quite strong on Saturday as well. The Brownlees taking gold and silver. Richard Murray knowing that he's given it everything to take his bronze medal, and he's soaking it all up here as he eventually crosses the line to take the bronze.
Well, I think you're absolutely right there, Matt, with the relay coming in just a couple of days' time. 2 good men, and we saw a couple of mishaps with the women's race, of course, but South Africa going to be joining Australia, New Zealand and Canada as big opponents. Over we go in 4th place there for York, 1 minute 50 seconds down.
Ryan Bailey, the first of the Australians, in 5th. Scottish crowd looking out for David McNamee, who should be the first of the Scots to finish. I think he's just about to hit the finishing line now, and it's a top 10 performance for David McNamee of Scotland on a day that's been dominated here by the English triathletes, with victory for Jodie Stimpson in the women's and victory, gold medal for Alistair Brownlee in the men's.
Johnny, congratulations, Commonwealth silver here in Glasgow.
Yeah, another silver for me. Alistair was better than me today. You know, we said it was going to be an honest race, and that's what it was. We basically did a 2-time trial in the swim and the bike, and the running was just stronger than me. So I'm pleased for second. That's all I had. So yeah, I'm pleased with that.
I've got to say thank you very much for getting out of a wheelchair to talk to us. Are you all right?
Yeah, I think I'm all right. I think it's a thing now, isn't it, to put me in a wheelchair after a big race like this. It's hot out here today, really, really hot, and I need a good sit down after this.
You two do make it look easy, but we can see now how hard you've worked. But tell us, how hard did you have to work out there on this course, on this scorching hot day?
It was really hard. We swam very, very hard. We biked a 2-time trial. The rest of them were sat in behind domestics and things, where we were 2-time trialing. So I came off the bike absolutely shattered. It was contrast to London completely, where we were fresh and it was a fast run. That run was not fast, it was slow, but just hard.
You're an Olympic bronze medalist, you've been world champion. How much does it mean to be a Commonwealth silver medalist?
Well, I've completed the whole set now in triathlon of medalist. Not winning, because Alistair's got in the way there, but yeah, I'm very, very pleased with that. So Commonwealth silver, Olympic bronze and world champion. That's great.
Thank you very much. Congratulations again. We'll let you go and do a bit more rehydration. Thanks, Johnny.
Thank you.
Just say thank you, Johnny. You're live on 5 Live Pay-Per-View.
Well, let me bring in Annie Emerson. Come in, come in. There's plenty of room now. You can see just how hard he had to work to get this medal.
Wow, he worked so hard. It was incredible. I've never seen anything like it. And as he said there, he was absolutely dead going out on the run.
I can just see Richard Murray here. Richard, come and talk to the BBC. You're live on BBC One. Congratulations. A bronze here in Glasgow.
Oh man, I'm so glad to get a medal. You know, it was in the swim, you know, it was pretty rough, and you know, I was a little bit back, and I don't know if you can see on the television shot, but I was just behind in the second group, and I had to go around to catch up. And oh man, I'm super stoked with the medal. I wasn't so sure about it, so.
You must be stoked. In a sport dominated by Australia and New Zealand, actually, you have Africa's first triathlon medal at a major games.
Yeah, I was asking our manager Lindsay if we've got a medal yet from in triathlon the games. He said no. So while I was running, I said, hold it together, don't cramp. And coming down the hill, my hamstring started to lock up, and I was like, just finish, complete it. And yeah, the body was feeling great, and yeah, it was you know, super happy.
Here in Britain, you were one of the favourites to share the podium with the Brownlees, but were you expecting this?
Well, you know, I didn't really know how the body was feeling. You know, I wasn't super motivated about it. I've been doing a lot of racing this season, so you know, it was quite hard for me to say, you know, I need to give it everything I got, and you know, I couldn't be happy. You know, the South African guys worked together, and yeah, we managed to. We didn't catch the Brownlee boys a little bit quick today, and they destroyed it on the bike. But you know, I'm very happy with third.
Well, well done, Richard. Let's bring in the new Commonwealth champion. Congratulations, Alistair.
Thanks very much. You know, obviously that's all you want in a race, really. It was just tough right from the start, from the finish. It was a proper triathlon. When you have small fields on good courses, you get good races like that, and it was just fantastic today. Really enjoyed it. Johnny was brilliant. We had Mark Austin for company for most of the bike, but I think he was working pretty hard, and yeah, it was good.
We were saying that Mark was getting a baptism of fire from both of you, both shouting at him to come on and do some work as well. Were you expecting him to be right up there with you?
Well, we never knew really. I never thought it would only be a group of 3 away. We kind of suspected more of a 5 or 6. But, you know, it was what it was on that course, and he did pretty well, really. We just wanted him to do what he could. And I said if he didn't do what he could, we were going to attack him. So he did what he could and then got dropped.
You yourself have had an up and down year with injuries and illnesses. What does this mean to you to become Commonwealth champion just 2 years after becoming Olympic champion?
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. You know, this is the goal that I wanted to achieve for the season, and I've done it now, so that's all I wanted to do, really. Yeah, and now I've done everything I wanted to do, so I don't know what I'm going to do now. I might as well retire.
Your family was out there in the stands, weren't they?
Yeah, my family and most of Yorkshire, I think. Again, there's more Yorkshire flags than any other flag of any nation, so that's fantastic. We're a pride bunch, and the support we get is just brilliant.
And you look like you had some fantastic support out there, even though you aren't a Scottish athlete.
Yeah, the support was fantastic. We were getting lots of cheers from Yorkshire and Scottish accents alike, I think. It was just great. Good crowds and a nice sunny day. But I think there was more people trying to take selfies and get on TV than there was actually sporting triathlon, but it was good all the same.
We'll take what we can get, hey,
yeah,
Alistair.
Exactly, yeah. Cheers a cheer, innit?
Thanks very much, congratulations again.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Enjoy the medal ceremony. Annie, well, Team England totally dominating today. 4 medals, 2 of them gold, and Alistair and Johnny doing what everyone expected them to do.
Well, look, that's what you hope for, isn't it, at the beginning of the day? But anything can happen in triathlon. Crashes, punches.
It's an unpredictable sport.
It is totally unpredictable, but Alistair just executed, as did Jodie Stimpson, the perfect races.
And Johnny, I know he was going for gold, so I say congratulations to him for the silver, but you can see in his eyes he really wanted the gold, but he said the better man won.
Well, he did, and I just think that Alistair just put himself on the line just that much more. He seems to be able to dig just a little bit deeper.
Triathlons are over here in Strathclyde Country Park. On Saturday, we've got the mixed team relay. Now, this event makes its major games debut, so it's a big weekend for triathlon. And Team England with the 4 medals, do you think they can get a 5th and perhaps even a gold on Saturday?
I don't want to jinx it, but I think they are going to be...
Oh, we're not superstitious,
We're
Annie.
not, but they are going to be so hard to beat. They really are. They raced so well at the World Championships in Hamburg a couple of weeks ago, and I really don't see anyone being able to get close.
Well, I think that team will certainly be fearing them. Well, as we said, the mixed triathlon team relay making its major games debut here on Saturday. The race starts at 12:30. Do make sure you join us then. Today, in a sport full of Ironmen, it was Team England that showed their steely determination to win, I think.
They certainly did, Sonali. In fact,